Welcome to the Product Boss Podcast, where we help product-based businesses grow their sales and improve their strategies.
Hey everyone, I want to introduce you to my co-host and biz bestie, Mina Kunlo-Sitep, an Amazon guru that has built a multi-six-figure product-based business.
And introducing the other half of the Product Boss, Jacqueline Snyder. She has helped launch and grow over 500 fashion apparel and accessory brands, even one of her own.
And together, we share our inventory of secret weapons that will help you dig deep and do the work it takes.
Are you ready? Let's build together.
Hey everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Product Boss Podcast. I'm your host, Jacqueline Snyder, with my not really a waitress co-host, Mina Kunlo-Sitep. Hey Mina.
Hey Jacqueline.
Do you like what I did there?
Yes, I love it.
So if you guys haven't already listened to last week's episode, it is with Susie Weiss-Fishman, the co-founder of OPI Nail Lacquers. And if you don't know what that is, you've either never been to a nail salon or
been living under a rock.
Yeah.
But because I feel like everybody knows, even if they're not like beauty salon fanatics.
And I think everybody knows, at least they know the color that they love, right? So for me, Lincoln Park After Dark is always one that I remember and love. It's like a really dark, not fully black goth color. I'm Not Really a Waitress is one of her best-selling colors, and it is this beautiful shiny red that is actually perfectly, I had it done to my nails for our interview, and it actually matched perfectly with the book cover. Like the way that they got that printing was amazing.
I mean, I don't know. Somebody would get fired if they didn't match that perfectly, right? And the CMYK breakdown of that, it's just like, if it came out a different color and they're like, not exactly, you know.
Like this empire was built one color at a time. It better match. So our episode last week was with Susie, and she was completely open and honest and beautiful in her conversation with us about where she started and how she grew a product-based business. And let me tell you all, she started this with a single product, one product, which is what we teach sometimes, go deep, not wide. And so she started with one product, and then she sold this business. She has done collaborations with Katy Perry, the James Bond film movie franchise, Legally Blonde, the Williams sisters, like literally all people.
All the coolest people in the world. I mean, the Bond thing is my all-time favorite because I kind of put those brands together in my mind, and they're just both so cool.
So we're going to dig into that a bit more in this episode. We're going to do a case study of the book and really talk about how it reinforces a lot of the things that we do teach our product entrepreneurs about what to do with your business. But first, we wanted to take some time and thank all of you that have been on and have reviewed us on our podcast lately. We so appreciate it. Honestly, it means a lot. We read every single one of them, and it really does help us with growing the podcast and getting out in front of more people, really for the purposes of helping other people, like having people find this community, because that's ultimately why we started the Product Boss, right?
Yeah, I mean, iTunes or Apple Podcasts, I guess it's called, is like Hunger Games, may the odds be in your favor. And then it's like when you send us those reviews, it's like throwing us some love in our favor. If you guys watch Hunger Games, you know exactly what it's like, parachuting some medicine to us. So we love all those reviews. For our mastermind, our last meeting that we have with all of our masterminders, we call it affirmations, where we affirm each other with things. And the hardest part about those affirmations is receiving it. I say this every time because you get kind of the tightening of the bodies. You're not used to getting complimented or used to people seeing you for real. That's kind of like reading these reviews, right? So as Jacqueline is reading them, I shall be receiving them.
Okay. So first, a shout out to Love Coco. So thank you for posting this, and it's titled Sell Your Product Like a Boss. I found this podcast shortly after going through a seminar where I worked through some issues that were stopping me from being more successful in my business and wanting to stay motivated. I happened upon the Product Boss and instantly liked the quote unquote girlfriend table talk and motivation Jacqueline and Mina bring to the podcast. So thank you, Love Coco, for finding us. And I'm glad that we're motivating you. We get some of that feedback, and we love that because that's the goal, right? Keep going. We want you guys to know you're not alone.
I love that girlfriend part. So how you can embarrass your kids, right? So daughter, sorry, she's 8 years old. And every time we go out for like a girls' night with my sister, I'll say, yeah, girlfriend to her, which is so out of character for me and out of her. And she'll be like, Mama, stop. Mama, stop.
My mom does that. And I literally say, Mom, stop. She has one friend. She goes, hey, girlfriend. I was like, oh my God.
Yeah. It's the only time I ever say it is just to embarrass her. But I love that. It is for real girlfriend talk though.
But I think that's the thing, right? Like we're part of some online communities and we've been listening to podcasts where, you know, people are in your ear and we're like, oh yeah, Amy Porterfield is totally my friend in my ear.
Hey, we met her.
We did meet her. But what I'm trying to say though is that like we get to be so close to you guys and we're honored that you allow us to be in your earbuds and that's what we want. You know, we're being who we are, and if we ever meet you in person, we would have the same conversations with you, hopefully over coffee or a drink. And then I just want to also thank Molly for this review. So Molly writes, finally a podcast for product bosses. I found Jacqueline Amina's podcast in the fall of 2018 while trying to find advice for my product-based business. I'd listened to other podcasts, but most were service or marketing based. And while some tips were helpful, they just didn't fit my business. Then I found the Product Boss podcast and literally binged the first 6 months worth of episodes on a 24-hour road trip. Listening to others in the same product arena that I was in made me feel like I wasn't alone. I feel like I get something out of every podcast I listen to. And I love that they are not stiff and like to laugh at themselves. Yep, that's us. It's something we forget to do as business owners. Thanks, Jacqueline Amina. So thank you, Molly, for that review. And thank you for binge listening to our voices for 24 hours.
I can't even imagine that.
But you know what? We do talk to each other a lot. So
yeah, that's true. That's true.
So everyone, thank you so much again for those reviews. And if you get a chance right now, if you wouldn't mind subscribing, if you haven't subscribed already, and to leave us some reviews and also share it. So if you have anyone that is starting a product business and you want to share, and some of these episodes are just really interesting to share anyways, like we have some friends that are service-based businesses that are able to get some cool takeaways. Haha, service. Now they're coming to the product podcast for info.
Yeah. Turn of events there. Now you know it's like in our world, we're having to flip it, right?
You're like, how do I take product and flip it to client?
I know, that's crazy.
That's awesome. So, all right, let's dig into this book. So if you guys haven't received it already, get on. We have a link. It's in our show notes. It's on our website for Amazon, and we have it right there on our favorite books. So it's I'm Not Really a Waitress, How One Woman Took Over the Beauty Industry, One Color at a Time by Susie Weiss Fishman, the co-founder of OPI. All right.
Yeah, the book, so good. So I decided to really jump on this episode because Jacqueline hasn't read a book in several years, and she was Voxer me on a plane. I would think there was probably like maybe 12 Voxers in a row. Every nugget she was learning from this book, how she was so inspired. She read it cover to cover. And this is from a plane. So once in a while I would catch, and then I'd get a whole bunch of Voxers at once. But I knew that I needed to read it. And then it seriously has been so great. I love the book. It's funny. It's well written. It's just so many nuggets. And plus it's for women. I feel like finally a book of a high achieving woman that's beautiful inside and out. And then also just so creative. That was the other thing too.
Yeah. And she actually says this, and we're not going to give you all of it because you guys absolutely need to read it. And what I loved about it was that it was a biography, it was a story of her life, and it was also how it's made sort of conversation. So this is a part that I loved. It was in her intro. Susie, the First Lady of Nails, the entrepreneur who put her passions for color and beauty to work to give women everywhere an unlimited means of self-expression. To Susie Weiss Fishman, the wife and mother who, with a great deal of help, still did carpool and made it to family dinners and school plays while running a multi-million-dollar business. As you will see, if I can do this, anyone can. And yes, I even learned to stop biting my nails. She bit her nails, guys. You have no idea. It's crazy.
I know.
That's my biggest takeaway of that subject.
But it just goes to show you like the passion and everything, you know, like you kind of learn along the way. It doesn't have to be perfect in the beginning, right? She could have stopped herself and said, oh, I'm not a nail person per se, right?
But crazy that someone who built a literal empire would chew her nails off and like would go to sales meetings and have to sit on her hands basically. And so it's interesting how she did that. But what I first want to say is the thing that a lot of people need permission to do is ask for help and get help. And I think a lot of times with product businesses, you guys feel that there's not enough money to go around to pay for the product, to pay for help. And something that we learned from people that we're a part of in terms of getting help and even getting help at home. Right. And so that's what Susie did. Like she knew that she said there's always a mom guilt, but she knew that she couldn't get to all the things, but she got to the things. Right. So she would travel really quickly around the world to get back for a school dance or to get back for a holiday or something like that. But then when she was away, she had people taking care of her kids that she trusted. And fortunately for her, she was near her family, but that you can do it. And she thanks the people who helped her, and she thanks the people who helped her personally. And she thanks the people who helped her in her company, which I love because she actually calls out a few people by name, and I love it.
Yeah, throughout the entire book, I mean, she gives credit to all the people that name certain polish or certain lacquers that ended up being really, really successful and were the best sellers. And they're all across the board. That's what I loved about it too, is just all the fun creativity behind that, the culture of the company. She talks about their meetings, how they would lock themselves in the room and come up with all sorts of ideas of what different names would be, and then they would eventually end up with ones. I'll tell you what also really I loved about the book was that she was bootstrapped. So she didn't have funding. She didn't have venture capital money. And I really vibe with that because a lot of the times I'm trying to, boots to the ground. Same with you, right, Jacqueline? Like we're very much, our experience has been bootstrapped. So seeing how she did it, and there's parts where she talks about how she would forget to eat and almost pass out. And I was like, what? Susie Weiss Fishman even did that? Because I forget sometimes, and I'm grumpy McGrump. And I'm always like, how would I forget to eat? And it's just sometimes the time gets away from you and all that stuff. But even, like all of us are just human, and even someone who owns a multi-million-dollar company, and she started somewhere. So it was so awesome to hear the behind the scenes of where she first started and everything.
She loves to work. And I think that's something that you and I really relate to because we love our family, but we also really truly that's our thing. Like if you want, we've said like our hobby is working, and that's something that she loves. And so it's interesting though, because she loves it, she loves food, which we do too, but she would be so into working and wanting to work late hours because she had this like clear vision. So I think that's a part that we related to. But yes, the bootstrapping, because we talk to people that have investors, like really huge investors, and people are always looking for investors. And there's that way of going on with your business, but there is a way for all of you and for us that you start slow. I always call it the snowball. So you start slow with like, what can you afford? What can you do initially? What can you test to make it viable? And then you kind of roll it out from there. And right now we're working with multi-six-figure businesses in our mastermind, and they're all people that have fully self-funded their businesses.
Yeah, it's a different way of thinking because a lot of times investors is a whole layer of complexity because you're having to report to them and you've kind of created this set of roles and responsibilities that you have to them. So I think that it's just different, but I loved her whole entire story, how she kind of stumbled upon becoming an entrepreneur and really loving it when she was in the Rosemary fashion. What was it? Rosemary
Slip Company.
Slip Company.
So Susie is a immigrant from Hungary, communist Hungary, where her parents actually survived the Holocaust. They lived in Hungary, and then they were like, we got to get out of here because the secret police would take her dad at night. It's a crazy story that you guys should all read. And so they eventually moved to New York, but her sister had gotten her visa first, her sister Miriam. And so Miriam went to New York first and met this guy, George Schaefer, and George's family had this Rosemary Slip Company. And so when Susie eventually moved to New York, she actually worked for a fashion company that made slips that was in production. It's totally Marvelous Miss Maisel.
Yeah, I love it so much.
And so she was given a lot of responsibility. She was young. She worked in the factory. She kind of got a really good idea. And her and George worked really well together. And George was the other founder of OPI. And so here's a little tidbit. Do you guys know what OPI stands for? It stands for Odontorium Products Incorporated. Okay? Because it was a company for dentures and for teeth. So what happened was George actually left New York and moved to Los Angeles to buy a company. I think his uncle was selling this company in Los Angeles in the Valley, where I'm from. And so they bought this teeth company, this product for dental assistants, right?
Dental hygienists and stuff.
Dental hygienists, yeah. They'd sold dental products and supplies. I don't know why I couldn't get those words out.
Dentists, teeths.
And so then she moved there. And this is the thing I love the most. When she told her dad she was leaving New York and moving to Los Angeles to help with the company, this is a clean podcast, so I'm not going to cuss, but her dad said this to her as she was leaving. He thought she was going to be a junior level assistant and said, "Don't F up the coffee when they ask you." Literally the advice her dad gave her as he said bye to her.
Well, she's accomplished much more than good coffee, let me tell you.
So she was 26 when she started this. And so this is the thing, this is the part of the meat that we actually really want to get to with you. So what happened was her and George started Auditorium Products Inc. And what they realized, this is the thing, okay, they realized that nail technicians in the 80s, the Hollywood nail technicians and salon owners were buying dental acrylics to make their own artificial nail extensions. So remember when acrylics were really trending, or they started in the 80s? And so they would make those out of stuff that they would buy from dental products. But the problem is actually like if you knocked your acrylic nail, it could actually rip your entire nail bed off. So it wasn't really the smartest thing. So what they did is they found this niche, right? They had a product, but they saw what people were asking for and how people were using their product. And so what they did is they went and they formulated a product to help the nail techs, right? Like they saw this opportunity to take this one specific product and move into a totally other industry, having the initial start of it.
Yeah, and then they created what was called the rubber band
special.
Yeah, rubber band special, and it was 3 nails, three nail system. Is that what it was?
It was like a 3-product system to
3-product nail system, right?
So if you've ever had an acrylic, think back. Like this is the conception of it, that they created that. Did anyone know that OPI created acrylics as we know them now? No.
I know. That's insane. So they started with that, and she would go basically knocking on all these doors and present that 3-step system to them, held together with a rubber band. That's why it's called the rubber band special. And so then she would come back later, and she said 100% of them loved it. I mean, that's a good percentage, 100%. So they loved it. And then is that when they got into selling the nail files and things like that, or was that after?
Well, I think that they blew that up. So what the takeaway here is that when they found a niche, right, guys? So they found a niche. They found a customer that was needing it. So they were only servicing nail professionals. They were not servicing anybody that did nail polish or nail products. They were going for salons, nail professionals, and they started in Los Angeles because Hollywood, the country was not going to get manicures at that point. It wasn't everybody. It wasn't this thing that people just went and did, right? And so they got really specific there, and they really focused down on their avatar. And they identified that opportunity in the market. And so she said, before we even knew how to make nail polish, we set out to be the nail care brand for professionals. This goal was part of our original vision, and we never forgot it. So with the product, the rubber band special, another takeaway is that she said to George, she's like, George, okay, we've created this product finally. It took them 2 years also. So they didn't make money for 2 years until they came out with like the perfect thing. But they didn't think about packaging necessarily. She's like, how am I going to take this out? He's like, I don't know, put a rubber band around it.
And that's the rubber band special. And that just goes to show you like something that we always try to remind all of our masterminders and listeners of is minimum viable products. A lot of times you're just wanting to come out with something that you can validate the concept of what people are going to love. And that's what she did. She created something. She didn't worry about the packaging. She went and introduced herself to these salons, and she left it there for them. And then she followed up a couple weeks later, and 2 weeks later, and then she made sure to get the feedback, and all the feedback was good. But when she got that feedback, she also adjusted for all the things like the nail lacquers, and she really picked up the industry and what it was needing and what it was wanting, and the who the nail industry was serving. So she could serve those nail technicians, but she could ultimately serve their clients. So it's just all that together, that minimum viable product of validation that she really did.
So what she wanted to do, and by the way, everyone, she's an introvert. So we know that so many of you are introverts and aren't the people that are going to go out, but she really had to push herself because she fully believed in her product. So her goal was that she was going to educate the technicians or the salon owners. So she went to the owners because she needed to tell the owners that you should start buying this, right? Because they made the decisions. And then she educated them on it. It was a brand new product. So she actually hand delivered it and she brought them like a little pamphlet, a how-to, basically like an instructional pamphlet, like take away all the objections and all the questions, give it and be there for them. She trained them. And then she said, here for free, take it, try it for 2 weeks. And if you love it, let me know. And that's why in 2 weeks, they all called back. So again, it's like samples, you get the feedback and then you get the sales, which is sort of what Pura Vida, when Jared talked about what they did initially too. I know not all of you can hand out product for free, but there is so much a part of what can you give for free if you really believe in your product and you need someone to try it and see if it's worth it for them.
And really, it's the giving out samples to people that could ultimately be big relationships, right? These are salons, these are wholesalers, these are people that could add it up. If you get 20 of them, or if you even get 5 of them, that would be wonderful. So they become your salespeople.
And what Susie says that she specifically told them to do is mention it by name. Say, I'm using OPI acrylic, whatever on you. I don't know what they really called it, but I'm using OPI. Because what she really wanted then was she wanted the customer who walked into the salon to call for OPI by name. The same way that now, as we know the brand in itself, you guys, I know I do it for my gels because gels are like the next thing, right? I say that I only want to see the OPI colors because I like how they stay on longer than other ones. So that was a really key factor. It was taking it from being the product that was being used, right? Like when you go to a salon, if you go to a salon that's branded, or maybe, they're using Bumble and Bumble conditioner, right? And you might sometimes pick salons based on that. And vice versa. If Bumble and Bumble was starting out and they went to a salon, like a hair salon, and then they're like, start to talk about Bumble and Bumble products. And then people are going to like the scent. And then they're going to want to come back in and be like, out of all the conditioners, I want the Bumble and Bumble X conditioner, right?
Yeah. And now Bumble and Bumble even has like Bumble and Bumble University, where they bring in stylists and they educate them on how to use the products. And it's like a really prestigious thing to get to go to that because they have the top of the line experts. Susie did that one salon at a time. She literally would go to them one by one, speak to the best people, and then get them to basically be on the edge of what was in, this 3-step process of acrylic nails. So I think it just really added to that. And I love the fact that she was an introvert because, this is what she did was way harder than cold calling in my mind. Actually,
like knocking on a door and showing up.
Yeah.
So I think, and what you were touching on before, so capitalizing on that momentum, actually what they did first, they did not add up other products. So I think that's another key takeaway here. They picked a product that the market needed, and then they went deep on that product, right? So then it was like, okay, let's say they were in Los Angeles and people started using in Los Angeles. So the next step that they actually did was they got sales reps that were national and then global to actually start to then get this one product. It's how easy is it to sell the best, this is like the most used in Hollywood acrylic product to make acrylic nails. And then everyone's probably looking at Hollywood at that point, and then, or they always have, and then they're selling it. You don't have to be in Hollywood, but if you are the go-to, so like Durai Home was on a couple of weeks ago, a podcast episode, and she has literally innovated and created a new bath mat with technology, right? If it's so easy for us to tell you, like, this is the number one quickest drying bath,
the world's driest bath mat
that minimizes mold and mildew and all that, it's so easy for me to tell you what she does and why you should go buy it.
For sure, 100%. And that's what Susie did. Can we talk a little bit about how she named it nail lacquer instead of nail polish?
Thank you. So I think this goes back to just understanding her unique selling point and also in what she was selling. So like the brand image. And so she talks about how her love is like food and travel, right? Loves it. And then she said, building a brand is like being in love. It takes an irrational devotion and willing partner. Well, that's about partners. But so what she did is she wanted to create luxury, right? She wanted to create, she wanted to bring fashion to all women and that you could change it on your nails. And so one of the things that she needed to do to differentiate herself from all the others, their differentiation thing was call it nail lacquer. It felt foreign, right? Like European, saying lacquers. And it defined it to be higher level, like not to blend in. You're not coming out with another nail polish. No, this is a nail lacquer.
Yeah, it feels like Parisian or Italian or something. They're using this high gloss lacquer over there that we don't know about, you know?
Yeah.
So, yeah, calling it lacquer just adds a level of something that seems better than polish. And then adding that, and then people, the industry being okay with it. So it's not something that's so foreign in a way that the people would be like, oh, that's not for our customers. I feel like it was enough of a bump up where they're like accepting of the word lacquer over polish, and it just added to the brand.
Yeah, and so just FYI, everybody, in 1987 is when they decided that they were going to launch the nail lacquers. So I have to go back and see when they launched, but it was in the early 80s. It might have been like 83 or 84. So it was years later. They did not come out with nail lacquers initially. And then it took almost like a year for them to come out with it because it needed to be perfect. But what she basically said was that, so this is their differentiation, right? So nail polish tended to be utilitarian and the names were like red number 4, mauve number 3. So she wanted to then basically, so she took the thing, she called it nail lacquer, but then she also wanted to create like this fantasy for people. And that's when she started coming out with these names, like Up the Amazon Without a Paddle, OPI Red, Kyoto Pearl, My Address is Hollywood, Princess's Rule, Grand Canyon Sunset, all these names. And so she would always kind of relate either food or a destination with the color and take you there through your polish color choice.
Yeah, imagine she even gives the example of she could have named something white number 1 or pearly white number 2, but instead she named it Kyoto Pearl, and that takes you to Japan where there's high-end fashion and food and luxury, and so she gives you an experience that you have on your fingernails. So it's kind of like living vicariously. And then also that it's so accessible, right? Fingernails, you can change them all the time. You don't have to, there's not this high investment of like a high-end fashion dress or whatever.
So then the next thing that she did, right? So they released this series of colors with really great names, and it was she called it a collection. So she merged the idea of fashion collections with the colors that she released. And it wasn't, she only released one group of colors. Like I think it was 30 colors. Eventually it would only be 12. And then she talked about the point of sale. So one thing that she said is if you're designing something new or revamping a category, create a product that speaks for itself and that consumers can't stop talking about. So one thing that she did really well was that she created, as she went to these salons that she already had established business with and said, hey, look, now we've got nail lacquers. She had it that clients, when they entered the salon, entered a 360-degree display featuring all 30 lacquers. So it was a display. It wasn't just on those racks on the wall, right? Like, and you guys, I'll bet some of you have been to those really nice salons that have the full-on OPI display in there.
Yeah, I mean, people step in there and they can't help but look at it visually. It's more captivating than just a sparse display on the wall, let's say. It's a 360 experience. They can look, they can choose. And then on top of it, a lot of times people go to the nail salon with their girlfriends or they go with their sisters or even their daughters, you know? And so then it's just, you get to pick out your color, you get to laugh about the silly names. It's just all together a great experience for the customer.
And they control with that point of sale. So with that place that you want your product displayed, they control how it's laid out because they also have the numbers on the product display so that they actually can place it, right? So then it's not like weird lime green next to a pretty pink. Like they have it displayed so you can almost track the colors. And so that's your control over how your product is displayed if they're going to buy into all those polishes to fill a display. So the other thing she said was an OPI innovation, which I think this is huge, especially for people who are starting to teach people about their product. She had a color chart that showed the consumer all of the OPI shades that were available. It was small enough that the client could take it in her purse and take it home. And then she could start thinking about the colors and she could live with it. And then the salon owner said that the color chart is what actually increased their booking. So people would get to leave with that color chart, see it, dream about it, and then think the next time they come, ooh, what am I going to try next? So it like reminds me of flavors of ice cream at like a really good like new ice cream shop.
Yeah, for sure. People are planning in their minds about what color they're going to be wearing the next week or a couple weeks later.
Yeah. So again, I think the big takeaway here is that one, you got to control how the product displayed, you got to stand out from the competition, and then you were able to educate your customer, even though the customers couldn't buy OPI nail polish on their own, right? Remember, it was only in salons for a long time. But they were able to educate without someone having to come up and say, like, oh, blah, 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 blah about this product.
Right. And letting them take the chart home is just so cool because it's like a mini display in their purse that they get to take with them.
Yeah. So she kind of changed up the entire industry by presenting colors. She did the first 30 colors, and then after that she did collections, so 12 colors at a time. And then she was able to sort of release these colors in these groups, and they were very specific. Like sometimes she would do like, you know, she gave them colors from Paris to Rome to LA to the tropics. So she was taking people around the world through these colors, giving them ideas. And I think one of the coolest things that they did was that they related it to people's holiday, like you were saying, holidays or weddings, right? Like I remember the color I wore at my wedding. I know when you get engaged, like you go get your, you go get your fingers done, and you're picking a color very specific because you don't stop glancing at your hand. But she stayed very consistent. So food and travel were the two pleasures, and they stayed in the DNA of the brand. No matter what has happened, that stayed true. So she didn't switch it up one day to something else. Like she stayed very true to what she came out with, and she wanted to offer an experience.
I loved how she would have meetings based on just naming the nail lacquers. It wasn't something like, oh, this is just everybody submit it and be done. It was a full on experience where they would come together, they would eat, they would drink, they would laugh, they would do it for days, and they would end up with the nails. It was an experience of itself.
And there's also, if you guys think about it, and you can keep an eye out now that you know who Susie is, there's colors. Once a collection, there's always a Susie color. So I remember there was like a Susie Loves Cowboys. I remember remembering that because I thought it was so interesting. And then we finally got to meet the Susie that Susie Loves Cowboys. So here's another thing, and we kind of touched about it in the last episode, but I think we should dig in a bit more. So let's not forget that OPI started in the 80s before there were before social media, right? Before this online presence and e-commerce stores. So everything she did, you can take what she did in real life and translate it online, and then also think about going back to boots on the ground kind of thing. So let's talk about how she leveraged this company without social media, like the Susie's Picks idea.
Yeah. Basically, at this point, though, she was a trendsetter. So before she was following the trends, at this point now, she became a trendsetter where she was able to, if she wanted something to happen, she could make it happen because they had such a presence, because they could go straight to the salons. And so one of the things isn't there two collections, usually spring and summer, winter, fall for fashion? And she did a Susie's Picks that would come after the spring that would make the industry interested again after the collections had already been released, and they would just have this renewed energy towards, hey, these are some new colors because Susie's picking them. She basically made a third time in the industry where people were interested again.
So let's say that first collection, the 12 bottles, right? She comes out with it. It's like, ooh, the new spring summer collection's out, the 12 bottles. Then some months later, after it kind of dies down, then it's like, these are Susie's Picks. And these are her, I don't know how many there were, 4, 6 colors or that sort of thing. That way, then there was more to talk about. So they had something to pitch again to press, pitch to influencers at that point where, celebrities pitch to everyone. So she was able to leverage something she's already done without having to create more product to talk about. So I know a lot of times you guys think you need to do more to bring more people. Think about how you can reuse what you've already done and how you can kind of package it up, or like Mina does a camp for Little Labels. You do a camp package, right?
Right. Selling hot off the press right now because it's camp season soon. But also I think that I know that one of the big things that people don't like to do is be the face of their brand. Susie as well, right? She wasn't really the face of the brand, but there is a little bit of you that has to come through. It almost is a necessity because you are so ingrained into your brand that a little bit of your preferences will show through, like Susie Loves Cowboys or, Susie's Picks. So she wasn't like this, like people won't even recognize her probably on the street, right? But at the same time, her most loyal fans and just the diehards probably know who she is.
if anything, it influenced the editors, the beauty editors, right? So they knew who she was. We didn't need to know. Us as the consumer didn't need to know, but the beauty editors did. So it would then influence their choices of what they were going to talk about. So now maybe if Susie said like this blue color is like the thing, they're like, ooh, she's just given us that tip that we can reuse that info. So think about that in your business too. Even if you're not necessarily the face of your brand, the big relationships that you're able to have and how then you can come back out and be like, this product right now, or for example, Mina with Little Labels, it's the same label she's been selling, but she's got it packaged for camps, right? Because everyone has to label all the stuff for kids going away to camp for the summer. So now Mina, the mom, is now putting together this really awesome camp package for you. And then it's like, oh, thanks. And it gives them something to talk about. Again, Little Labels, same stuff, but different way to talk about it, right?
Yeah, for sure. It's like when you're going to go buy a car and you're like, oh, I really like this Honda Accord. And you start seeing so many Honda Accords on the street because you're like it's the timing, right? It's just like I'm picking up on when people are going to camp and they're like, oh, now I can finally, my radar is opened up to camp things. It's just like, oh, now my radar is open up to Honda Accords. Now my radar is open up to Susie's Picks. What's new right now? Because I know that that's what's going to come a couple months after the spring and summer. After that, the collection has kind of died down a bit. It's kind of on simmer.
So think about this, everyone. Like over the process, probably about 10 years is when they fully became what we maybe know today. So it was slow but steady, and they went deep, not wide. So they started off with the acrylic 3-bottle package. Then what we were sort of touching on is after they established these relationships with all of the nail technicians and the salon owners, they came out with a product so that the nail salons could buy from one company, and they would buy nail files and everything you maybe needed to do acrylic nails. Then is when they came out with like the fashion product, like the disruptor, as she calls it. It wasn't necessarily a disruptor then, but they came out with nail polish. People already had nail polish, but they differentiated it, right? And she designed the bottle really specifically to the way that like it could be held ergonomically. The bottle was designed a bit different. There was a lot of things that they changed about it to make it something still how it would hold in the nail technician's hand, right? So it still up-leveled the product. And then that's when it went into the brand that we know today. So one thing she wants to just say to all of you, and it's in here, is that patience is a virtue that successful people cannot be without. So she writes here, my advice to women getting started in business, especially if this is your first job or you're making a major career shift or you're starting your own product, is to stay focused on your vision for the future. Your vision will set the course for the rest of your life, affecting everything from your career to your long-term relationships to having family of your own. And then she says, and if you're not proficient at it yet, learn patience. So she says you have to have patience in making money. You have to have patience in launching the product. You have to have, there's going to be bumps along the road. So just stay very committed to your vision. Don't pivot and change it because it doesn't feel like it's working right now. You have to keep at it.
Yeah. She talks a little bit about the lipstick debacle, which is so funny. She calls it that. The book is really funny, you guys. You guys will enjoy it. It's just so well written. And they decided to get into lipstick, but they happened to come out during the summertime and they got this like melty, waxy coat on it, and it ended up costing them millions of dollars. And she learned that hard lesson of that just stick with what you know, because that will eventually start making you more money as well. So I think it is really important. Patience is so hard to learn. I mean, we're trying to teach that to our kids, but yet we're still not masters of it,
Yeah. Have the vision, I think, have the vision of where you want your business to go and then stay true to that vision and give it a chance. Like it took years. I mean, I'm not going to say shut your company down. If there's like a couple of years that you're doing the same thing and it's not selling, there's no response to it, then maybe we should have a strategy session with you and we could talk about what's up. But otherwise, if you see it growing slowly, if you see that people want it, what can you reinforce? Because a lot of times when we tell our masterminders this all the time, they want to add new product. And we're like, hold on, you're going to go and spend money on new product versus kind of doubling down, right, on the product that you've got right now and doing what you're doing well.
But the reason why the lipstick became a debacle was it's a different formula too. A different formula, perhaps a different client because they're not going into salons to buy lipstick. And this is kind of, we always talk about Jared and Pura Vida, but I wanted to give their example of he they came out with various things. Like I think they had a swimmer line, different things that didn't do well, and then they came out with the wave ring. The wave ring was the same, let's call it technology, but it was an artisan making an affordable piece of jewelry that they could sell to their same customer, which was the person who like lives about the beach and the sun and the snowboarding and all that stuff. So they have the same customer. So they came out with wave earrings now, wave bracelets, it's all stemmed from the wave ring doing really, really well. And so it was a big jump to go the wave ring, but not as big as lipstick and nail polish. So really calculate what you're going to be doing as far as like, if you want to come out with something new, the risk may pay off, but it may not pay off too.
Yeah. And that you can afford that loss too. So if it's a really big change or product development, it stung, but they could afford that $1 million loss. Basically, it's like 1 million tubes of lipstick. But just remember that people are voting with their dollars. So if you see something selling, do not ignore what's selling. Look at what's selling and look at what's not selling and see why. Oftentimes people are like, oh, I should do more of blah, 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 or I should add this. And it really doesn't make sense. So I think, sort of in conclusion is that a lot of this, if we can go back to the way things were done, if you think about that boots on the ground, like Susie showing up at nail salons, the steps that we used to take, you can translate that all to the online world now as well. Even this idea of social media and like social media influencers, it's still word of mouth. So don't forget word of mouth. Don't forget that just your friends saying that it's great or having your family talk about it on social media, having people talk about it, it's still that word of mouth, know, like, trust factor. So I think if you guys get this book and you read it, she really does pull out a lot of points here that she then relates it to what's happening today and how you could do it, like what social media is doing right now in this sphere, but what she did before social media. And then it's easy to remember, oh yeah, all it did was take a conversation, and how can you take that conversation? And if it does have to be online, how do you have a genuine conversation with someone? I think that's another big thing, like genuine relationships. People are still looking for those.
Oh, 100%. Probably more so because you don't get a lot of that online. The book was so good. You guys should definitely get it. Both of us read it cover to cover. I highlight my books. Jacqueline dog ears them. I think that no matter what, there's a good takeaway for everybody.
You guys, she does, she also gives you, because people are always asking her for business advice, right? Hello, us too. So she actually in the back of the book gives you 20 of her best pieces of advice, like 20 of them. Just that, like just reading her pieces of advice, because she speaks on panels and she teaches people, but this type of advice is amazing. And also, I'm going to conclude this with, do you know who she called when she sold her company for, they sold their company for a lot of money. I don't think it's actually posted on how much, but let's say lots and lots and lots, like more than any of us can imagine. Maybe tech companies sell for that. Do you guys know who she called?
Who?
When she found out that her business was finally sold? Serena Williams. Because she did a collaboration with Serena with her nail lacquers, and they actually created a genuine friendship. And this woman called her as a friend, and they actually had like a true friend conversation, because that big relationship turned into like a real authentic relationship, where at the biggest height of her career, and then also such sadness of change, that was a person that she found to rely on, which I'm sure when she started back when she was 26 in the 80s in LA as an immigrant from Hungary, never in her life.
Yeah. And I bet she just felt like Serena Williams really got it. Who else is under like a microscope of criticism as much as, athletes trying to live their life, right? They dissect her outfit on the tennis court. So I think that that's so cool, because it is like, we find people in our journey of being an entrepreneur, myself and Jacqueline included, the two of us, that you either hit it off with or you don't, and that's okay. But you end up sharing such personal things with people and such grand things, because those people are just the ones that get it. They speak the same language as you.
Mm-hmm. It really is we're still you're still looking for those real relationships. It's like online dating, more or less, swipe right, swipe left. And when you find that real relationship that you're able to take off of the screen into real life. So we'd like to tell you all to find that for yourself. Join our community on Facebook. The link is in the show notes, that there are other people there looking for the same type of relationships. And we just want to thank you for being a part of our community, and go out and get this I'm Not Really a Waitress, how one woman took over the beauty industry one color at a time. And again, there's a link in our show notes for you to get it on Amazon and to get it right away, or to get it on your Kindle.
Yeah. Thanks, everybody. This episode is over, but it doesn't have to end. Head over to our Facebook group, search for the Product Boss Biz Community, or the link is also in the show notes. Come connect with other product bosses just like you. We'll see you in there.
If you love the Product Boss podcast, we'd love for you to subscribe, share, rate, and give a review on iTunes. Until next time, Product Bosses, let's make it happen.